40 countries globally. And I did do a lot of globe trotting. Change the climate, the culture will change. So many times people want to change the culture without changing the climate. When we do our market entries and we do product development, we divide basically our strategies into 4 landscapes. The first landscape is existing products, existing markets. Today, everything has become digital. Every transaction is digital. A lot of digital know-how is required. ESG has come into picture. Environmental social governance is very important.
Hello and welcome to FaceTime with Leaders, a podcast series presented by Directors Institute, World Council of Directors, where we bring you exclusive conversations with industry pioneers, seasoned executives, and boardroom visionaries. Today, we have the privilege of hosting a leader with nearly 3 decades of expertise in strategic business management, market expansion, and corporate leadership. He has led large-scale business transformations, driven multi-million-dollar revenue growth, and expanded markets globally. Currently serving as business head at ZECO MUNTERS AHS, he oversees corporate strategy, P&L leadership, and operational excellence on a global scale. Mr. Milind Mate has successfully led mergers and acquisitions, restructured organizations, and launched innovative product verticals while ensuring sustainable growth. His leadership has shaped HVAC, industrial equipments, process engineering, and utility solutions industries. In this episode, we explore his leadership journey, strategic decision-making, and how businesses can navigate change and disruption. So get ready for an insightful and engaging discussion. Mr. Milind Mate, welcome to FaceTime with Leaders.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Sunny. And thank you for having me here on the show. Yeah.
Great to hear that, Mr. Milind. So with nearly 3 decades of experience leading business transformations, expanding markets, and driving corporate strategy, your journey is nothing short of inspiring. But every great leader has a starting point. So was there a moment early in your career that shaped your path? We would love to hear about your journey, how it all began, the key milestones along the way, and the challenges that helped define the leader you are today.
Well, going down the memory lane, because this is a very interesting question and takes me almost 35 years back when I was an engineering student. This was somewhere in 1990s, and I was studying in an engineering college in Pune. And at that point of time, there used to be one of my relatives who was working as a company secretary in one of the large companies of India. And I used to go to his home to normally have dinner. And he used to entice me with talks on the industry. And that is where the bug bit me that how do I go about and what can I do for the industry and how do I really develop myself. But yes, those days were very naive for us, and we had just started. I started my career actually as a service engineer, and for about a year or two I did work as a service engineer, but then I found my true calling. My true calling was sales, and from there on I never looked backwards. For the last 28 years now, out of 30 years, I've been fully engaged into sales and business development. And of course now, as time went by, I went into the bigger roles. There have been many highlights all through the 30 years career. Of course, there are lowlights, but then we are here talking about the highlights. One of the best things that I got to do was get a taste of all kind of sales, activities. I would say I'm one of the fortunate professionals who has a similar experience both in domestic and international markets. By the guidance of my mentors and by the grace of God, I was able to do almost 40 countries globally, and I did do a lot of globe trotting. Not only that, I was able to handle a lot of other markets, whether it is a commercial market, industrial market, or a government market, because government projects are also a separate market altogether. I think the best thing I would say that happened to me was my bosses, my leaders, my mentors, who all the way guided me. And in the last 10 years, I think what has really been exciting for me is to be a part of corporate management. I think that has been a turning point for me. So I would say last 10, 15 years, I've been inducted into corporate management, and I'm doing, I'm learning the ladder up for the corporate management. Yes, there have been big instances where I had booked real big orders. For one of the companies I worked, the order that I booked about 15 years back is still the biggest order they ever booked in the history of the company. So, not divulging into details, but yes, this was about 20 years back, an order worth 80 crore rupees. And I think in those days, that was a very big amount we talked about. I've done a lot of, business openings in different countries. I think that has been always challenging. Going to any part of the world, trying to set up an office over there, I think that has been the challenging part as well as the satisfying part for it. So my milestones would be really working in corporate management and really working into the international markets. I would say that those are my turning points through the career.
That's such an incredible journey, Mr. Milind. It's amazing how certain experiences, whether challenges or opportunities, can shape a leader's entire career. So, continuing our conversation, Mr. Milind, mergers and acquisitions are often seen as high stakes, game changing moments for any organization. But beyond the numbers, contracts, and boardroom negotiations, there is an entirely different challenge, one that many leaders underestimate. So, you have been at the forefront of M&As and corporate restructuring, navigating both the strategic and human aspects of these transitions. So, in your experience, what's the most overlooked factor in ensuring a merger isn't just successful on paper, but truly works in practice?
Again, a great question, and I think a question which is very relevant now because India itself is going through a lot of changes, a lot of investments that are happening in India, and one of the major things that is happening is mergers and acquisitions. They've been happening for a while, but now this is really accelerated as far as the Indian economy is concerned. I always say one thing. I think this is something that I always talk about is that mergers and acquisitions are as difficult and as easy as it gets. It's a process. You hear in the news that certain company acquired a certain company, mergers happened, acquisition happened. But what happened after that? What's the follow-up? So that no newspaper, no social media really publishes because that has gone through its own journey. And I say one thing very clearly that merger and acquisition is nothing but a kind of a collaboration. The key to merger and acquisition is good collaboration. If you're not collaborating, then it just stays on the paper and doesn't really see the light of the day in terms of the objective for which merger and acquisition was done. One of my experiences where I was a part of the company which got acquired. And when the company which was acquiring us came to us, they said, what is it that you want to do? How do we ensure that the culture changes? So I just gave them one thing. I said, change the climate, the culture will change. So many times people want to change the culture without changing the climate. What are the climate? Climate are the enablers, people, processes, products, procedures. These are enablers. Two big executives coming and signing merger and acquisition and then left to the mercy of the people who don't have much of an idea about merger and acquisition. I think that is where it goes wrong. I think when merger and acquisition happens, it is not of only the companies, it is also of people. I think people are at the center of merger and acquisition. That is something I've really learned. That until unless people are aligned for a merger and acquisition, the merger and acquisition will not happen successfully. The visions, the mission of the company, whether they are aligned, how it operates functionally, does it get aligned? Because ultimately, there is a very important step in merger and acquisition, which is called as integration. So first, you have to understand, bring everything on the table, do a differentiation of things, where we are different, where we are same, what are the commonalities, what are the SWOTs of the company that is acquiring, as well as what is the SWOT of the company that is being acquired. And it again, on all the attributes of acquisition. I think once we start doing that, I normally would say that before we start the acquisition process, we should disagree as much as possible so that after acquisition, there is no disagreement. So I would say really it has to be not done by only by papers. It has to be done by your soul, by mind and heart. You have to get involved in the acquisition process. Some part of you is left in the earlier company, some part of you is in the new company. The people who are acquiring you or the company which is acquiring you also wants to transform the culture, wants to transform the business. So it's basically a stakeholder concern for all people involved. So I would say that in a very simple way, again, I'll end this question by saying that if you want to really do a successful merger and acquisition, change the climate, the culture will change. The culture will change, all of the attributes will change. I think that's how I see the merger and acquisition process.
Absolutely, absolutely, Mr. Milind. And it's easy to focus on the numbers, but the way you highlight the human and strategic side of M&As really changed the conversation. All right. So, Mr. Milind, continuing our conversation, expanding into international markets is more than just a business decision. It's about understanding new cultures, adapting to different consumer behaviors, and navigating unique regulatory landscapes. So your extensive global experience across Middle East, Europe, US, and Asia shows firsthand how market dynamics can vary drastically. So what are some of the fundamental differences businesses must consider before taking that leap?
Yeah. So as I told you at the start of the interview, I was very fortunate to travel almost 40 countries globally. And one thing I learned for sure was that every country needs to be treated separately, differently. There is a business model. Okay, some of the commonalities can be there, but there is a specific model for every country. Even, for example, if you go to Middle East, the way you handle Saudi is going to be different than the way you handle Dubai. Is going to be different from the way you handle Iran or Iraq. So, even if you go to the Middle East or the West Asia, the way things are happening are totally different than when you go to Americas. Within Americas, North America is a very different way of handling. So I'll give you this with an example. So I come from an air conditioning industry, and in air conditioning industry, it's very important to understand the climate of that country to actually, do a metrics of how do you really go into the market. The most elementary step that one needs to take is first is the desk research. I think that is the most important thing. In international marketing, if your desk research is as accurate as possible, the possibility of converting into business is going to maximize. Incidentally, if you go into the global markets today and see from a point of view of air conditioning, America is cooling centric, Europe is heating centric, and India is humid centric. Now, these are technical terms, but for someone who's into air conditioning, they will immediately understand that if I have to come to India, then I must be able to get in products which handle the humid atmosphere. This is purely technical. Now going into the policies and formulations. The way people operate in US is different than the way people operate in Europe. US is a representative driven market. It is a lobby market. Europe is a manufacturing market. And India is a consultant driven, influencer driven market. So how do you place your sales and marketing efforts? How do you position yourself in different markets is going to be different. Very unique example I'll give you. Example, Bangladesh. Bangladesh doesn't make anything of its own except for pharmaceuticals and little bit of textile. So if other than pharmaceutical and textile, I want to go into that country, it is the best country to get business out of. The revenues that generate out of Bangladesh, the profitability you get out of Bangladesh is probably double or triple of what you do in India. So you have to decide which country you want to go. You want to go to Africa, today Nigeria, Kenya, Tanzania. These are countries where a lot of investment is happening. You need to be there somehow, either directly or through distributors or dealers. Once you reach there, I think 80% of your job is done. I would say in international marketing, 50% is your desk research, 30% is your effort to reach there. And once you reach there, 20% is the way you convert the business. So different markets have different strategies. Nowadays, it is very common. You have become a global citizen and the companies themselves have become very global. What you also have to understand, if, for example, you have to take on to an OEM account, and then OEM account is headquartered in Sweden, just for example, but it has plants in different parts of the country, in different parts of the globe, then you cannot just get away with talking to the Swedish, HO or head office. You have to go to all the plants. You have to understand their businesses from a people's perspective, from a culture perspective, from a policy perspective. I think policies become very important. Another thing I would like to put up is the political stability. So, you can make the best policies and you can make the best, strategies. However, if the country is not politically stable, then you may end up losing a lot of investment. So it's not only a product, it is not only the mapping of the market, but it is also how stable is that country. Is it coming up for elections? I very clearly remember, 2 years, 3 years back, I was trying to do some kind of expansion in Nigeria without realizing the next year Nigeria is going to be elections. And when we went and we appointed a dealer over there, he said, I'm not going to guarantee you any business for 2 years. In spite of the fact that the market was expanding. So, you have to understand the market in terms of its political stature at that particular time period. So I would say, people, product, policies, promotion, as well as political know-how of that country is very important. So that's what I would like to, tell you about international marketing.
So, Milind, that's such a fascinating breakdown, actually. It's incredible how a strategy that works perfectly in one market might need a completely different approach elsewhere.
Yeah.
So, moving ahead, Mr. Milind, launching a new product or business vertical isn't just about introducing something new. It's about timing, strategy, and truly understanding what the market needs. So you have been at the forefront of driving successful market entries, navigating competitive landscapes, and positioning businesses for long-term growth. In your experience, what's the real secret behind a winning market entry strategy?
Okay, now this is one question, which has bothered a lot of people who are into product development and market entry strategies. I think it is best ways to simplify it and then go into different platforms. Let me try to explain that to you. When we do our market entries and we do product development, we divide basically our strategies into four landscapes. The first landscape is existing products, existing markets. The second landscape is existing products, new markets. The third landscape is new products, existing markets. And the fourth landscape is new product, new markets. I think first we have to understand and realize where are we expecting the revenue and growth from. Because you go to the existing products, existing markets, you are looking at what is called as organic expansion. However, if you're going to the other two verticals, which is existing product, new markets, or existing market, new products, you are looking at basically inorganic expansion. So I would say, you have to first understand and realize the potential of your product and the potential of the market. Any product development is basically going to come out of the marriage that happens between the product and the market. There are also two schools of thought to this. One is for your existing product, how do you expand? Second is what do you do to develop a product which actually satisfies the market? So there are two ways to go about it. Again in India, the business that I am into has never looked into dealership models. We've always gone through the end user. We have gone through contractors. But now, very recently, we have adopted a new strategy that will go in for dealerships. That is a market entry. That's a different kind of market entry. Or, as I explained in my earlier question, if the market demands a humid product or a cold product or a hot product, we have to customize our product accordingly. There's a lot of study that goes into that also. And I think, you can even think about going into the market early, but what product you need to introduce in the market is going to be a very sensitive subject. Because ultimately you cannot just, if you are in a consumer business or consumer brand business, let's say you are selling a Coca-Cola, it's a very different business altogether. But when you're doing business in terms of process equipments or utility equipments, understanding the needs of that market are going to be very critical. Give an example, small example. If I want to today diverge into Saudi Arabia and want to develop a new product, the first thing I must remember is the voltage over there is different. The technical requirements of Saudi Arabia are different than the technical requirements of India. The service requirements are different in US as compared to the service requirements of India. So entering a product is not just a product, but a complete understanding of that product life cycle. How the product inquiry will be initiated and how will the product finally land into its grave. So I would rather say you have to understand the cradle to grave story of your product and the cradle to grave life of your market to make a combination and then enter into a particular market with a particular product. That's what I would say.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's clear that market entry isn't just about launching a product. It's about truly understanding the landscape, the competition, and the right moment to make an impact.
Right.
So, Mr. Milind, as you look ahead, what are your future aspirations, both professionally and in terms of contributing at the board level? Do you see yourself taking on more governance roles, shaping corporate strategy at a broader level, or mentoring the next generation of business leaders?
For sure, yes, because that is the natural progression for a professional like me. See, I've been learning for the last 30 years, and I've done a lot of activities when it comes to learning and development. Sometimes as a speaker, sometimes someone who's trying to get himself trained. I think with now about 30 years in the field, I think time has come for me to start giving it back to the society and to the industry at large. Because with 30 years that I've accumulated experience on multiple subjects and topics, I think I'm now kind of ready to take on these roles. I'm already doing it. It's not that I'm not doing it, but I'm not doing it full-fledged. I'm still more into the operational roles. I'm still not into the core strategic roles. So I have a mix of strategy and operational roles. But yes, my next step is going to governance roles, trying to shape up the corporate strategies of the companies and at the same time mentoring the next generation. Because unless you don't do that, and I strongly believe that when you mentor the next generation in the process, you are also upgrading yourself. because you cannot keep mentoring the next generation the same attributes that you had learned at the time of when you were performing those actions. Things evolve. Things have become digital today. Things have become very statutory compliant today. So, for someone to understand this, one has to also learn, but at the same time start giving back to the, to the corporate world. I think that's where I'm coming from. And I have started speaking at various forums in terms of giving lectures and opinions and be a part of some kind of brainstorming sessions. But I think it's coming natural to me, and I am looking forward to take up that next role of corporate governance as well as mentoring the next level leadership team.
That's truly inspiring, Mr. Milind. And it's one thing to build a successful career, but another to use that experience to shape industries, mentor future leaders, and drive governance at the highest levels. Great. So diving into the subject of corporate governance, Mr. Milind, it has evolved beyond just compliance. It's now a key driver of business resilience, stakeholder trust, and long-term success. So what I would like to ask you is, with your extensive leadership experience, how do you see corporate governance shaping the future of industries? And part B is, in your view, what should today's business leaders prioritize to ensure governance is not just a regulatory requirement, but a true strategic advantage?
So first and foremost, corporate governance, according to me, is the most important and most fundamental aspect of any business that is being run. Because corporate governance, as you rightly said, earlier used to be something that was talking about the statutory compliances. The way corporate governance has evolved, it is the business itself. So if you look at any corporate governance teams in the company, they are not only driving the statutory compliance requirements, but they are also driving the vision, the mission of the company. They are driving what is the article of association of that company. How does that company operate? It's very important. First was earlier days used to be how does company strategize, but now it is how do we strategize, operate, and deliver. So the SOD model has become very important for corporate governance, because corporate governance again is not only limited, as I earlier said, not to statutory but to digital requirements. Today everything has become digital. Every transaction is digital. A lot of digital know-how is required. ESG has come into picture. Environmental social governance is very important. So, when these kind of things are coming in, and then again, there was a time earlier when people used to say that, okay, we will hire a director in the company and, we will ask him to give us some statutory recommendations. Today, you need people who have a complete know-how also of the subject, because the performance of that particular organization depends on your know-how on almost all aspects of that business. So I think therefore corporate governance and governance by the right people in the corporate is becoming very, very, very important. So, for me to kind of, and it is very important again, the stakeholders, the shareholders, whether it is the employees, whether it is the shareholders, whether it is the investors, everyone is now looking at the mix of the people who are doing the corporate governance for a company. They are being evaluated. And even I would say I would go beyond the public limited companies or private limited companies, even people who are driving these businesses, like families, even they are having directors who have different experiences, and they need people definitely with complete experience on corporate governance. So I think corporate governance is the future. It is the present also, but it is only going to become stronger and stronger in future.
Absolutely, absolutely, Mr. Milind. And that's such a powerful take on corporate governance. It's clear that strong governance isn't just about ticking regulatory boxes. It's about building businesses that are sustainable, accountable, and future ready. All right. So we are moving towards the last question of the session. And Mr. Milind, as a leader with extensive experience in corporate strategy and governance, you recently joined Directors Institute. So I'd love to hear about your experience, what stood out to you the most, and how has the Institute helped you refine your expertise?
I would say, first of all, a big thank you to Director Institute, because, and I've enrolled recently. The way they explained the whole process of corporate governance, the way they had explained the importance of independent directors or even the executive directors. They started with very basic and took you to the exemplary levels of the high stake that is involved when you have the right kind of corporate governance in the company. I think the way they are, they are educating the audience, the way people are really, explaining you different real life situations, I think it is phenomenal. I think I'm still learning the ropes, and I think it is going to be a wonderful experience when I'll be going through this journey of becoming ACDP. That's the course I've enrolled for. So I'm doing an advanced corporate directors program, and I think probably it's one of the best decisions I've taken in my life because I believe that at every level, you need some kind of guidance and some kind of direction. And I think directorship is doing a phenomenal job in really taking people to that next level now. So yeah, a big thank you to directorship.
Great to hear that, Mr. Milind. It's always inspiring to see accomplished leaders like yourself continue investing in learning and governance excellence. Mr. Milind, today's conversation has been a masterclass in leadership, governance, and strategic growth. Your journey is a testament to the power of vision, resilience, and the ability to navigate complexity with confidence. So thank you so much for joining in.
Thank you. Thank you. I will only end it by saying that let's keep learning, let's keep growing, and there's always a better way to do things. Let's upgrade ourselves continuously.
And to our lovely audiences, as industries evolve, leaders who embrace change, drive innovation, and uphold strong governance will shape the future of business. The lessons shared today are not just for the boardroom, but for every professional aiming to make a meaningful impact. Thank you for joining us on this episode of FaceTime with Leaders, presented by Directors Institute. Until next time, stay inspired, stay forward-thinking, and continue to lead with purpose. Thank you so much and have a nice time.
Thank you.